Long before the Jedi or the Sith ever came into being, there was a galaxy filled with mysterious civilizations and ancient power. This was the dawn of galactic history, stretching as far back as 100,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, when the seeds of the Force and the structure of the galaxy as we know it were only just beginning to take root. What little we know of this era comes from mythic texts and ruins left behind by civilizations so old, their very names have been lost to time. At the heart of this ancient period lies the Force. Although the Jedi would later study and name it, the Force itself predates all known cultures. It is believed that primitive sentients, scattered across different worlds, came into contact with the Force through instinct, ritual, and spiritual experience. These early Force-sensitive beings did not yet classify the energy into light or dark, they simply recognized it as a living, breathing essence of the universe. One of the most pivotal and mysterious civilizations of this time were the Celestials, also known as the Architects. These near-godlike beings wielded such immense control over the Force and the fabric of reality that they could manipulate entire star systems. Myths tell of the Celestials creating artificial structures on a galactic scale, such as the Corellian system, designed with planets and gravity wells, arranged with great precision. The Celestials, though largely vanished by recorded history, are often considered the first true masters of the Force. Alongside them, the Force Wielders, also known as the Ones, emerged as living embodiments of the Force's dual nature, the Father representing balance, the Daughter symbolizing the light, and the Son embodying the dark side. They did not build empires, but their existence shaped the way the Force was interpreted by future civilizations. During this prehistoric era, the galaxy also saw the rise of numerous ancient species with deep connections to the Force. Among them were the Qua, an advanced reptilian race native to Dathomir. They developed infinity gates, which were interstellar portals capable of near instantaneous travel. These gates were not just tools of expansion, they were symbols of the Qua's spiritual understanding of the Force and the interconnectedness of all life. However, the Qua's knowledge eventually declined, and their civilization regressed after attempting to protect the galaxy from misusing their technology. Another vital species was the Gree, ancient beings with a unique perception of reality in the Force, which they called the Life Current. Known for their biomechanical technology and dimensional engineering, the Gree built enormous structures and machines that defy modern comprehension. Perhaps the most mysterious of all were the Rakata, whose infinite empire rose during the final stretch of this era. The Rakata were the first known beings to harness the dark side of the Force to fuel their technology. Their Force-powered hyperdrives allowed them to enslave and conquer dozens of worlds, spreading their influence and devastating cultures that could not defend themselves. What made the Rakata even more fearsome was their belief in Force supremacy. They saw themselves as divine rulers, chosen by the dark side to dominate the stars, but their arrogance would ultimately sow the seeds to their fall. By 36,000 BBY, the Force was no longer just an instinctual energy sensed by a few. It had become the foundation for emerging beliefs, practices, and codes. Civilizations had begun to study it, fight over it, and attempt to master it. The spiritual age of the Force had ended, giving way to the Jedi Order, the first organized group to try to understand and balance the light and the dark. The Jedi era spans over 10,000 years, with this era being the time when the Force began to be understood, practiced, and revered by a group that would lay the groundwork for the Jedi Order. The story begins on Tython, a planet located in the deep core, saturated with Force energy, and known for its violent natural Force storms triggered by imbalance. Tython wasn't just a random choice, it was a destination. Around 36,000 BBY, starships carrying Force-sensitive pilgrims from across the galaxy, guided by the mysterious Thoior pyramids, converged on the planet. These beings came from worlds like Kashyyyk, Ryloth, and humans from Coruscant, each drawn by visions or destiny. What united them was their shared sensitivity to the Force, though they interpreted it in different ways. On Tython, under the influence of the planet's raw energy, they began to form a collective understanding. This group of seekers became known as the Jedi Order, not yet Jedi, and not aligned to light or dark. Instead, they believed in balance, walking a path between the two sides of the Force. To the Jedi, falling too far into either extreme, whether light or dark, would bring chaos, and indeed, Tython itself would react violently to such imbalance. Maintaining harmony within and without was not just a spiritual concept, but a survival requirement. The Jedi built 9 temples across Tython, each focused on different aspects of Force philosophy, ranging from martial discipline to scientific inquiry. Initiates, known as journeyers, were required to travel between these temples during their training, mastering not only Force techniques but knowledge, discipline, and self-awareness. One of the most sacred places was the Temple of Calith, considered the spiritual heart of the Order. It housed ancient texts, Force relics, and served as a meeting place for the Jedi Masters. During this time, the Force was still known by many names and understood through various lenses. No universal doctrine, only a shared respect for the mysterious energy that bound all living things. The Jedi used Force-imbued blades and primitive weapons, enhanced by their connection to the Force, predating the lightsaber by thousands of years. A turning point came with the arrival of Force users from other parts of the galaxy, especially those who had begun to explore and embrace the darker aspects of the Force. Some believed that only through passion, dominance, and personal power could one truly master the Force. These individuals, once Jedi themselves, began to reject the philosophy of balance and instead pursued personal gain and absolute control. This ideological split eventually erupted into the Force Wars of Tython, a devastating conflict that tested the Order's very existence. The war was catastrophic. Entire regions of Tython were scarred by battle, and Force storms raged across the planet, nearly tearing it apart. In the end, the Jedi triumphed, but the cost was immense. The survivors realized that maintaining balance was not sustainable for all Force-sensitive beings. The Force itself, they concluded, had both light and dark aspects that could not always be reconciled. As the Jedi era drew to a close around 25,000 BBY, the survivors made a fateful decision. The Order was to be restructured. Those who still adhered to the principles of harmony would leave Tython and eventually become the Jedi Order, centered on peace, knowledge, and the light side of the Force. Those who had embraced the dark side would go into exile, some of whom would later become the first true Sith Lords. The Old Republic era was the beginning of galactic civilization as we know it, a time of political unity, technological innovation, and ideological division. It saw the birth of the Galactic Republic and the formal establishment of the Jedi Order. This era witnessed the transformation of loosely connected star systems into a galactic community guided by shared laws, protected by the Jedi, and threatened constantly by those who opposed their ideals. This era began around 25,000 BBY, when representatives from several core worlds, including Coruscant, Corellia, and Alderaan, signed the Galactic Constitution, forming the Galactic Republic. The Republic's central idea was to promote peace, cooperation, and free trade between the worlds of the galaxy. At its heart was the Galactic Senate, a governing body made up of delegates from each member planet. For the first time in history, planets across thousands of light years had a unified voice in shaping their shared future. This political leap would not have been possible without the rise of hyperspace navigation. The invention and rapid expansion of hyperdrive technology made it possible to travel between star systems in days instead of years. Early hyperspace lanes, like the Parlemian trade route and the Hydean Way, became lifelines of commerce and diplomacy. Explorers, traders, and diplomats ventured farther than ever before, bringing new planets into the Republic and spreading a vision of unity and civilization. Parallel to this, the Jedi Order emerged from the ashes of the Jedi tradition and began training initiates as Padawans under the teaching of Jedi Masters. It was also during this time that they began using lightsabers. The Jedi became the guardians of the Republic, entrusted with maintaining peace and justice. They saw a life of selflessness, reflection, and protection of the innocent. They did not serve as soldiers, but rather as mediators, peacekeepers, and scholars. Still, conflict was inevitable. Tensions arose as the Republic expanded into the Outer Rim. Not all systems welcomed the Republic's ideals or its laws. Independent empires, criminal syndicates, and religious cults often resisted integration, leading to skirmishes and border wars. But the greatest threat came from those who had not forgotten the power of the dark side. Among these were exiled former Jedi who had fully embraced the dark side and had begun to call themselves Dark Jedi. These individuals rejected the Jedi's teachings of restraint and balance, believing instead in domination, passion, and the pursuit of personal power. Some gathered followers, established hidden societies, and began to plot the downfall of the Republic. Over time, they would evolve into something more dangerous, something the galaxy had never seen before. The closing centuries of the Old Republic era was defined by increasing unrest. The Dark Jedi conflicts, also known as the 100-Year Darkness, pushed the Jedi Order to its limits. The final battle saw the Jedi defeating and exiling these Dark Force users to the far reaches of the galaxy. Unknown to the Republic, these exiles would later discover the planet Korriban, home to the red-skinned Sith species, and would establish a new empire grounded in the dark side. By 5000 BBY, the galaxy had changed forever. The Republic had grown vast and powerful, the Jedi Order had become a revered institution, and a shadow was beginning to rise beyond the stars, a threat that would return with vengeance. The Sith Expansion Era was a dark and transformative chapter in galactic history, an age when the Sith, once exiled outcasts, rose from obscurity to forge an empire that would shake the foundations of the Republic and ignite conflicts that echoed for millennia. This was the time when the philosophy of the dark side became an organized imperial force, no longer hidden in shadows, but marching openly in conquest. After their defeat in the 100-Year Darkness, the Dark Jedi quickly subjugated the native Sith and interbred with them, creating a hybrid civilization ruled by power, hierarchy, and fear. Over time, the term Sith came to refer not only to the species, but to the dark side order itself. The strongest among them crowned themselves Sith Lords, and they began building a powerful empire centered on Sith ideology, passion, strength, and domination. One of the most legendary figures to emerge during this time was Naga Sato, a cunning and ambitious Sith Lord who sought to extend Sith influence far beyond the unknown regions. Around 5000 BBY, Sato launched an invasion on the Galactic Republic in what became known as the Great Hyperspace War. Although initially successful, his empire was ultimately defeated by the Republic and the Jedi. Sato fled to the remote world of Yavin 4, where he went into hibernation, leaving behind temples and secrets that would later haunt the galaxy. But even in defeat, the Sith Empire did not die. Survivors retreated deep into the unknown regions, where they rebuilt in isolation over centuries. Unlike the decentralized Republic, the Sith Empire was ruled by absolute authority, first by Sith Lords and later by the Dark Council, which governed under the shadow of a single, immensely powerful emperor. This new Sith civilization grew stronger in secret, developing new weapons and force techniques that twisted nature itself. Back in Republic space, the Jedi believed the Sith threat had been extinguished, but echoes of their dark legacy remained. Sith holocrons, which were ancient data pyramids infused with dark side knowledge, were discovered and sometimes even studied in secret by curious or reckless Jedi. Rogue Force users inspired by Sith teachings began to surface, and dark cults emerged on fringe worlds. Meanwhile, within the Sith Empire, preparation for future conquest never ceased. Sith academies trained young acolytes in cruelty and ambition, pitting them against one another in brutal trials. Only the strongest survived to ascend in rank. The closing century of the Sith Expansion Era saw increased Sith infiltration, dark rituals on forgotten planets, and whispers of a return to galactic warfare. Tensions began to rise once again, and the stage was being set for a new, more devastating confrontation between the light and the dark. The Jedi-Sith Conflict Era was a relentless and bloody period of galactic history, defined by war, betrayal, and the rise and fall of empires. Stretching across 2,000 years, this era saw the Jedi Order and the Sith locked in a devastating struggle for control over the galaxy, with both sides pushed to their absolute limits. By 3000 BBY, the Sith Empire, now reformed and strengthened in exile, launched renewed assaults on the Galactic Republic. These weren't mere skirmishes, they were grand campaigns involving massive fleets, dark rituals, and devastating invasions. The Jedi Order was forced into a defensive role, protecting core worlds and sacred sites, against an enemy that grew stronger with every battle fought. The new Sith Wars were especially brutal. Unlike earlier, more centralized Sith empires, this era saw numerous Dark Lords rise in fragmented factions, each seeking personal power and supremacy. One of the most infamous was Darth Revan, a former Jedi Knight who fell to the dark side and led a powerful Sith army during the Mandalorian Wars and the following Jedi Civil War. These wars weren't only fought with lightsabers and starships, they were waged across minds, through deception, espionage, and the corruption of the Force itself. The Sith, with their dark alchemy and manipulation, often turned Jedi against their own order, creating internal fractures. Entire worlds were lost to darkness, and many Jedi perished or fell to the dark side during these centuries of chaos. The scale of the conflict reached its peak in the 7th Battle of Ruusan, around 1000 BBY, where the final and most catastrophic confrontation took place. This climactic war saw the Sith under Lord Khan forming the Brotherhood of Darkness, attempting to unify Sith factions in one last bid to overthrow the Republic. Opposing them was General Hoth, a Jedi Master who led the Army of Light, a united front of Jedi determined to end the Sith menace once and for all. The battle ended in tragedy. In a desperate act, Darth Bane, a Sith Lord who had grown disappointed disillusioned with the Sith's infighting, unleashed the Thought Bomb, a powerful dark force weapon that annihilated both the Brotherhood of Darkness and the Army of Light. The Sith were believed to be utterly destroyed, but Bane survived. He fled into hiding and established a new Sith philosophy, the Rule of Two. From this point on, there would be only two Sith at a time, a master and an apprentice, operating in secrecy, slowly plotting their return. The Jedi believed they had finally won, but the seeds of darkness had merely gone underground. The Galactic Republic era was a period of relative peace and political stability on the surface, but beneath it brewed corruption, deception, and the final stages of a Sith plan that had been centuries in the making. Beginning after the apparent extinction of the Sith around 1000 BBY, this era was a time of political reform, Jedi resurgence, and gradual decay. In the aftermath of the devastating Jedi-Sith Wars, the Republic reorganized itself to prevent another collapse. A new constitution was enacted, and the Jedi Order, also heavily diminished, retreated from the battlefield and focused on diplomacy, education, and spiritual guidance. Peace returned to much of the galaxy, and the Republic slowly expanded, bringing thousands of new worlds into its democratic fold. The Galactic Republic governed over 1 million systems, each represented in the Galactic Senate. The Jedi Order once again became guardians of this peace. They maintained a presence on Coruscant, the Republic's capital, in their massive Jedi temple, and trained generations of Force-sensitive beings to protect life, justice, and imbalance. However, with time, Jedi grew complacent and entangled in politics, losing some of their spiritual clarity and becoming more vulnerable to manipulation. Meanwhile, the new Sith lineage refined its plan to destroy the Jedi and the Republic, not through brute force, but through subversion, infiltration, and manipulation. Their greatest success came in the form of Darth Sidious, a Sith Lord who would rise to power as Chancellor Palpatine of Naboo. As the Republic aged, signs of dysfunction became harder to ignore. Corporate interests, such as the Trade Federation and Techno Union, held disproportionate influence over the Senate. Bureaucracy slowed down decision-making. Many outside rim systems felt abandoned by the central government, leading to growing unrest. The Jedi, acting as peacekeepers, were increasingly viewed as enforcers of an unjust system. These tensions erupted into open conflict during the events of the Naboo Crisis. When the Trade Federation blockaded the peaceful world of Naboo, Jedi Knights Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi uncovered a deeper plot involving the Sith. Their warnings went largely unheard. Over the next decades, Sidious engineered a galaxy-wide conflict known as the Clone Wars. Using his public persona as Chancellor, he manipulated both sides of the war: the Republic, defended by clone troopers, and the Separatists, led by his apprentice Count Dooku. The Jedi led the clone armies into battle, further involving themselves in war and politics. Slowly, Sidious orchestrated their downfall from within. The end came swiftly. In 19 BBY, Chancellor Palpatine declared the Jedi traitors to the Republic and executed Order 66, a secret command embedded into every clone's programming. Across the galaxy, Jedi were ambushed and slaughtered by the very soldiers they led. Anakin Skywalker, now transformed into Darth Vader, marched on the Jedi Temple, killing younglings and masters alike. The Republic was officially dead. In its place rose the Galactic Empire, with Palpatine declaring himself Emperor. The Senate remained only as a symbolic body, and fear replaced democracy. The Jedi were declared extinct, and the galaxy fell under authoritarian rule. The Galactic Empire era was one of fear, oppression, and ruthless control, forged from the ashes of the fallen Republic. It began in 19 BBY when Chancellor Palpatine declared himself Emperor. Palpatine wasted no time transforming the Republic's institutions. The Galactic Senate became a powerless formality, and regional governors were appointed to rule over sectors with brutal authority. The Republic's clone troopers, rebranded as stormtroopers, became instruments of oppression rather than defense, and dissent was crushed wherever it emerged. One of the Empire's first priorities was to erase all memory and evidence of the Jedi. Surviving Jedi were hunted down by Inquisitors, dark side agents trained to eliminate Force-sensitive threats. The Jedi Temple was transformed into the Emperor's stronghold, and any mention of the Jedi or their teachings became punishable by death. At the heart of the Empire stood Darth Vader. He hunted down rebels, traitors, and Jedi alike. Behind his mask, however, a battle still lingered between the man he once was and the monster he had become. Technological power became another cornerstone of the Empire's dominance. planets. Massive warships like the Imperial Star Destroyers patrolled the stars, and devastating weapons were developed in secret, most notably the Death Star, a moon-sized battle station capable of destroying entire planets. This weapon was the Empire's ultimate message: rebellion is futile. Yet, rebellion did come. Across the galaxy, resistance movements began to form, uniting under the banner of the Rebel Alliance. These brave men and women, scattered and outgunned, waged a desperate war against Imperial tyranny. One of the key turning points came when Princess Leia Organa smuggled plans of the Death Star to the rebellion, leading to the station's destruction at the Battle of Yavin in 0 BBY by a young pilot named Luke Skywalker. Luke's rise marked a new hope for the galaxy. Trained in the ways of the Force by Obi-Wan Kenobi and later Yoda, he sought to restore the Jedi Order and redeem his father. Over the following years, the Rebel Alliance grew stronger. The Galactic Empire's era came to a climatic end in 4 ABY during the Battle of Endor. There, the second Death Star was destroyed. The Emperor was killed by Darth Vader, who finally turned against his master to save his son, and Anakin Skywalker was redeemed. With Palpatine's death and the fall of Vader, the Sith lineage under the rule of two appeared to end. The Empire did not fall overnight, but its heart had been pierced. The galaxy, long darkened by tyranny, now looked toward the dawn of a new era. The New Republic era began in the aftermath of the Empire's catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Endor in 4 ABY, but the fall of the Empire was only the beginning. Building something new from the ruins of tyranny would prove to be just as challenging as tearing it down. Now reborn as the New Republic, established its provisional capital on Chandrila, the homeworld of Mon Mothma, a respected senator and former leader of the rebellion. Determined to avoid the corruption and centralization that had plagued the Old Republic, the New Republic embraced decentralization, reducing the size of its military and shifting political power across member worlds. The Galactic Senate was restored, and democratic principles returned, but peace remained fragile. Many former Imperial officers and loyalists retreated to the unknown regions or fortified pockets of resistance across the galaxy. But the war did not end all at once. The New Republic continued to fight remnants of the Empire for several years, culminating in the Battle of Jakku in 5 ABY, which effectively resulted in the Empire's final military defeat. After that, a formal peace treaty known as the Galactic Concordance was signed, officially ending the Galactic Civil War. In the years that followed, the New Republic worked to rebuild the galaxy, trade routes reopened, devastated worlds were restored, and hope began to flourish again. Leia Organa, though instrumental in the rebellion's victory, found herself increasingly frustrated by political gridlock and complacency within the new Senate. Her warnings of a growing threat in the unknown regions were often ignored. That threat would soon emerge in the form of the First Order, a militarized remnant of the Empire born in secret, forged by loyalists who had fled after Endor. As the First Order rose in the shadows, so did a new generation of villains. Among them was Ben Solo, son of Leia and Han Solo, trained in the ways of the Force by Luke Skywalker. But Ben was seduced by the dark side and took the name Kylo Ren, becoming a powerful enforcer for the First Order under the mysterious Supreme Leader Snoke. Disillusioned by Ben's fall, Luke went into self-imposed exile. Leia, sensing the growing danger, founded the Resistance, a paramilitary group that operated independently of the New Republic's bureaucracy. By the time the New Republic realized the scale of the threat, it was too late. In 34 ABY, the First Order struck a devastating blow, annihilating the New Republic's capital and fleet with Starkiller Base, a superweapon even more destructive than the Death Star. The attack shattered the Republic's power and left the galaxy on the brink once again. But amid the rising darkness, a new light appeared in the form of Rey, a scavenger from Jakku, who would go on to awaken the Force and reignite the Jedi legacy. It was ultimately revealed that Sidious had not fully perished. He was behind the First Order's rise. Unfortunately for him, the Resistance fought back hard, culminating in his defeat in the fall of the First Order. It seems like a time of peace can finally begin, with the Jedi Order officially being rebuilt. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below your thoughts on anything I discussed in this video, and subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this one. Thank you again, and goodbye.